Hi, you guys. My name is Ayden Carpenter, and I'm an intern here at the Center for Research on Vermont. Today, I'll be sitting and interviewing Ms. Kelly McDowell as part of our ongoing interview series. Right now, the center is shifting to focus the series more on people working towards sustainability and diversity in Vermont. As such, I'm so excited to have Kelly here as our guest. She's a hemp consultant here in Vermont and also teaches a class here at UVM. Really exciting. But most importantly, we're going to be focusing on hemp today. Anything you want to say about yourself?
I'm really honored to be here. I'm excited. Thank you so much for inviting me. I can't wait to discuss all things hemp and how I got here.
Yeah. Well, I guess, let's start on how you got here. So you started up in New York fashion industry. What got you into fashion?
So I grew up in New York, right outside of New York City, and my grandmother and grandfather worked in the fashion industry and were pattern cutters back in New York City in the garment industry. And so I grew up with fashion and sewing since I was really little. I started sewing at 6 years old, making Barbie clothes for my Barbies out of the scrap bin from my grandmother's sewing basket. And she would let me have the scraps, so I would upcycle them for my Barbies. And as I grew up, I continued to sew, and I ended up in my high school. I was very lucky because I had a fashion program, a home ec program at my high school, and was able to major in fashion while I was in high school, which was really cool and very unique for any of the towns around. And I knew very young what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into fashion, and it was pretty much in my blood. So I went to Westchester Community College for fashion merchandising, where I got my associate's degree. And then I went on to Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, where I studied textile development and marketing, which is a very small program. It's actually a science degree at FIT, and not many people know that there's science degrees there. We were kind of the nerds, which is fine. And I graduated with a bachelor's degree of science in textile development and marketing, and I headed straight out into the fashion world, into New York City. And I began my career working in product development for many different brands. I've worked for some large scale apparel brands, some accessories, some button companies, many different things, but my specialty is product development and my education is textiles. So I had a very intense position within companies because the product development team works with the merchandising team, the design team, the shipping team to make sure everything works well and all the developmental aspects of the final product are being put to use. The merchandising team decides how much it's going to cost, what colors. The design team also fills in on that. And the product developer tries to get the fabric and buy the accessories and figure out all the in between. And that was great. I did that for about 10 years. But I did run into a lot of new knowledge that I was not ready to process in the fashion industry. The fashion industry is extremely unsustainable, and being the person who handles a lot of the global communication, dealing with overseas vendors and factories, I was definitely disheartened, disgusted, and didn't realize how bad the fashion industry really is for the globe, the environment, and for people especially. And I pretty much decided that wasn't part of me anymore, and I couldn't be part of the problem, and I needed to get out of it. And I moved to Vermont. I picked up and I moved to Vermont, and I decided I wanted a quality of life that was way different than New York City and the rush, and I needed to get away and I needed to escape. And I came to Vermont, and I didn't really know what my next step was going to be. I left the only career I knew, and I thought maybe I would go into fashion here, see what's going on in Vermont, where I could make a difference, be with more like-minded people who believed in the same morals and believed in that sustainability is important, because in the fashion industry, people don't believe that, really. I found myself at Goddard College, which is in Plainfield, Vermont. It's a institution for the area. It's a very different learning system than University of Vermont, for sure. It's a low residency program. And I started working in academia there. I worked for the president and I worked for the admissions department. And while I was there, I found out about a master's program that they offered, which was Master's of Arts in Social Innovation and Sustainability. And I can self-design exactly what I wanted to do. And that's when I started studying sustainability in the fashion production industry. And I graduated from Goddard in 2017. And now I'm here and extremely excited with everything I've learned and put towards my new moral goals and career.
Thank you. I have a few questions about that. So a big theme for everything was like sustainability, from like why you left New York to why you came to Vermont and like going and getting your master's. So was sustainability a big thing for you, like before you came here, or was it like the whole you moved to Vermont and the sustainability hits you?
It was a part of me before. I definitely grew up with hippie parents and new age, and I was lucky to understand environmental challenges at a young age and to be aware of the bad things that are happening and to be proactive about learning about what's going on. And so growing up, I was very into environmental studies and looking at how the earth interacts with people. And that I also, personally was a very sustainable person that tried not to, I eat very well. I was a vegetarian for a long time. All of these things were very much ingrained in me growing up. And when I got here, I realized that I was around people who also put this as a top priority. And while I was in my bachelor's degree, I found a lot of students at FIT were very interested in sustainability as well. And we touched upon it. To learn about sustainability and then to go into the real world and have a job is, it's a culture shock. It's a slap in the face when you're like, oh, you can want this, but the bigger processes are not in favor of it. And how do I make a difference? And getting here and going to Goddard and be given this tool where I can become the actual change maker. And that's where I saw myself being really important, being an educator and not just, at a school, but just in life, and being an activist and looking at things. How does change start? How does innovation help? How do these two things go together? And how can I utilize them to make a difference?
That's really interesting. I guess so coming up here really changed you, and then I guess I want to ask, so coming to Vermont, how did it really change your thoughts on just fashion by itself in terms of like how fashion can be sustainable, how everything can be circular? Like dig into that. I want to hear.
Yeah, so I definitely am not really a fashionista, like the New York City fashionista style. Like I'm not really into buying like the most expensive things. I wore flannel before I moved to Vermont. So I definitely stood out with my friends down there. I already was Vermonti and I didn't know. I think that comes to the way that I feel. I don't really care what I look like. I'm about functionality and having wardrobe pieces that work and work the best for me without me having to spend too much money. And I've always kind of dressed that way. So when I came up here, I saw that people were very much about functionality in their wardrobe. What's the best for the weather? I mean, the weather is different than New York. So when it's cold out, you have to dress based on how cold it is. And you need to figure that out. You need to have a good pair of boots. You need to have a good jacket. You need to have a scarf, all of these things. And it's kind of hard to look cute when you're dressing up in the winter. So I saw people that were dressed for functionality and not caring if their makeup's on or their hair's done. Like, those things are not important to me and never really have been. So it aligned with the way that I felt. Like, I knew that I didn't have to be that dressed up girl that walks into the office. I could wear my boots and my jeans and my flannel, and that's the Vermont wardrobe, and it worked for me, and it has worked for me, as you can see.
That's I understand.
There's also, like, the other thing is that in Vermont, where can you go shopping?
True.
TJ Maxx, the University Mall. There's not that many options. And if you wanted to be fashionable and like be on trend or buy trendy stuff, you either have to go to Church Street, to a couple of different stores that are there that are trendy and great, or you have to buy online, and online brings a lot of challenges. You don't know if it's going to fit. You don't know how it's going to go. And I don't like to buy online unless it's secondhand. So I was really pleased with the amount of secondhand stores that are here. That was really exciting. And the stores had really awesome stuff. So I was impressed, and I still am impressed with the secondhand shopping in Vermont.
I definitely, I feel similarly. It's been very fun going, and you see a lot of really like cool, interesting things for sale up here in the secondhand store. It's just like, because it's actually really great, because since everyone's been here so long, they have all the winter gear. It's a very nice, affordable time to get winter gear.
You can get winter gear secondhand, which is so awesome, and it helps with the price, which makes it like definitely like achievable for all different. I don't really do any winter sports, but I definitely have a good winter coat. You got to have a good winter coat and a good pair of boots. And I love the winter. I don't ski, but I still love the snow, and I appreciate it.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Then I guess to transition from that, I want to ask, how did you get into hemp? You came up here, you were like just working on the business supply end. How did you come up in Vermont and then say like, hemp's what I want to do?
So while I was in college at Goddard, I started my grad school in 2015. And in 2015, the U.S. government enacted the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill then legalized the cultivation of hemp. So for CBD and for fiber. And this was a huge innovation for our country, because we changed a policy that had made hemp a Schedule I drug. And the reason that the government had opened up this avenue was because CBD was being synthesized for the treatment of epileptics. And so pharmaceutical companies needed it to be legal. So they allowed it to be legal so that they could offer the first medication, which is called Epidiolex, to children who needed it for epilepsy. On a side note, I'm also an epileptic. So this also plays very, very much into my life personally and my education. So it was a huge deal. And I started studying this. And as soon as it became legal for us to start growing hemp again, I knew that was an innovation that was currently happening while I'm studying. I have a personal connection to this. I'm a fiber scientist. It was all coming together at the right moment. And I just got chills again. And it was happening. And so I delved deep into the CBD and the hemp scene in Vermont and New England. And I met with people, and I saw who was doing stuff and who was into this, because I knew there was a lot of farmers and researchers who definitely wanted to understand how hemp could help Vermont, could help America, could be sustainable, could be great for so many different products. And I've known about hemp my whole life because, as I said, I grew up as a hippie, and everybody associates hippie culture with hemp fabric. fine. I'm okay with that branding. But I started really getting active with a lot of players in the state and finding out who was into this as well. And I met so many different people, and I started researching hemp, and I was able to use my background of knowing fibers to really delve deep into how a market for hemp could potentially benefit Vermont. And a lot of what happened with the hemp market in Vermont is that Vermont chose CBD. And the reason, when I talk about hemp, there's two different types. There's one for CBD, and then there's industrial hemp. So when I talk about industrial hemp, that means for seed and for fiber. CBD is grown as a monocrop. So it's like a tree, a bush. And that's because it's genetically, like the seeds for that are genetically made to make a high CBD in the plant, and it's grown that way. When you grow for industrial, it's more of a you throw seeds around. It's not monocropped. It's a it almost looks like not wheat, but there's a lot of plants, and the more plants you have, the more material you'll have. It grows very tall, way taller than a monocrop CBD bush, and so they're completely different genetics. And that's important for viewers to understand, is that you can't grow for CBD right now and make hemp fiber from that. They're different genetics, and that's something that I personally want to explain to everyone, because I've gotten into the industry where people grew for CBD and they cut down and harvested their plants, and then they said, here's the stock, maybe you can make a t-shirt out of it. And that's not how it works. And so a lot of the activism that I do is speaking about how the fiber is made, because that's kind of where we've been, understanding the agricultural aspects of it, and then also understanding the processing of industrial hemp. And CBD is different than the processing. You can process your CBD by yourself on your farm, no problem. You can't process industrial hemp like that by yourself in the way that you need to, because of quantity, because you need so much to make it. But hemp fiber is there's two different types. So we have a hurd and we have a bast. The hurd is almost like a wood chip. It looks like a tiny little wood chip. And then the bast fibers are long fibers that are strong enough to then be woven into yarns. But in between that process, there's a couple of different steps that need to happen. For example, after you harvest hemp from the field, what you do is you would need to red it. And redding is a process that you can do with water, or you can do it organically in the field. And what you would do is you would tie up all of your, let's say you have like all these different hemp plants, you would tie a bundle of them together, chop it down, and then you leave that in the field for 2 to 3 weeks. And nature then decomposes all of the organic matter that is not needed and leaves you with the fiber, the hurd and the bast. So you can do that with water as well. Water will do the processes of decomposing the organic matter as well. So then after that process, what you do is you need to dry it out, which you can do in the field as well, which, takes a little bit, but you definitely want to dry it out somewhere where, it's going to get dry. No mold is going to affect it. But hemp is the second most strongest fiber that we have, and it is very strong. So it will last. And then after you dry it, you have to go through a bunch more processes to get it to places that can be utilized for a market. And we have two different markets. If you're using hurd, which cannot be used for t-shirts, okay, or bast fibers. So the hurd is something that we could use for Hempcrete. Are you familiar with Hempcrete?
That's like super strong concrete made with hemp, right?
It is a building material, yes. It's not a concrete, so it's basically the hurd, fiber, and you mix it with limestone, and you can create building materials. And there's types that you can make bricks, and there's types that can be poured directly into a wall slab, if that makes sense. You build the way the wall would be, and then you pour it in and it hardens. And Hempcrete is fire retardant. It also allows for a lot of moisture to go in between, and the air quality is really great. And Hempcrete is offering something innovative to the building materials world, and that's really something great because they need it right now. We all know that wood is an issue, and Hempcrete is something that will last for almost forever, but it's doing positive things. And when you're chopping this down, it's beneficial. So when you chop down trees, and we have this like exorbitant price right now, it's not helpful to the market of architecture and building. So a lot of sustainable builders have been really trying to figure out how to utilize Hempcrete more and more. And so we're at the place where a lot of states are they are looking at zoning and permitting and allowing for these structures to be built. And so that's very innovative. In our state, we have 1 or 2 possible small buildings that are built out of Hempcrete. But if we look at some other companies that are across the country, they're building huge houses and really innovating. And then on the other side, we have textiles. Now, that's my part. And right now, what we're looking at in this country is we missed out on the revolution of utilizing and creating hemp fibers for a market for clothing because it has been prohibited in our country to grow. So all the other countries, Canada, Europe, some Asian countries, they've been doing it while we haven't. So we need to catch up on our processing equipment because we don't have the equipment here in the US. We need to figure out how to get it here, but we also need to figure out how to create a market where we can be sustainable, because developing the markets is the first step. If we could get a processing facility here, obviously that would be great, but the things that have to buy into that as well, if you buy it, first of all, a decorticator is the most expensive first step to making hemp fibers, and a decorticator helps to take the bast and the hurd and separate them so that they're in a place. And that's the first step. Decorticators are very expensive, could be up to $1 million, if not more. And right now, if you bring a decorticator here, and we don't have farmers that are growing industrial hemp, what's the point? It needs to work in the right timeline. And because we have such a high population of CBD licenses, it's hard to get people to want to buy in to grow for fiber industrial hemp when they don't know where they're going to sell it at the end of the day. Not even where they're going to sell it, where they're going to send it to be processed. Because if we don't have the processing equipment in Vermont, where's the closest place? Then you have to think of transporting all of that biomass. That's a whole nother expense on top of it. But if we did have something here and we produce this, okay, so let's say we have a decorticator in Vermont. Great, amazing. And we're gonna soon. We're gonna. Yes, we're gonna soon. And once we have a decorticator here, then there's more buy-in for the farmers to want to be part of it. But something we're also looking presently at in our state, if we're looking at agriculture, is we are about to have recreational adult use, THC, marijuana, be legal and start to be licensing out farmers right now. And we saw that CBD was definitely more popular and dominant than industrial hemp in our entire state, for sure, and has been since 2015. And right now, we have licenses going out for growing recreational adult use. So that is probably going to be a different economic product that maybe CBD farmers are going to switch into because it's a very similar type of growing. But I see that it's probably pushing industrial hemp farther down the road for our state. And without the production qualities, not only if we got a decorticator, that would be great, but we have to understand that if we're growing, I don't know, 500 acres of industrial hemp, and go put it through the decorticator, we then have to process the fiber for textiles to a place where it can be spun into yarn. So this process is going to take a long time. It's different stages of production just to get from the soil to a yarn. And from a yarn, we have so many more steps till we get a garment. From yarn, then we have to knit or weave. We have to dye and finish. We have to produce an apparel garment. And then we have to warehouse it and ship it and retail it. All those steps, although they would be great for our state, I believe that New York, since they are large and they have a lot more money, they're going to have a lot more access to this. And how do we figure out how to work with them? How to either be something completely different, not be so scaled up. Maybe it's a small type of co-op. And that's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see some sort of co-op within our Vermont agricultural, and figuring out how to make this work as a team, because in Vermont, we love community. And that's why I love Vermont so much, because a co-op model could potentially be amazing for economic development in these rural areas. And that's where my grassroots thinking and knowing the people that play in this industry really, that's what I'm hearing people say. And I'm totally for that. So what does that mean? And how do we get there? And when do we get there? My question is, I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year or even the year after that, but I'm always hopeful.
I guess a few questions then.
Yeah.
After all that. So for the farmer, can they specialize, or is there any way to focus purely on, say, you want the little wood chip type of hemp, or if they want the longer fibrous type of hemp, can they just focus on one?
No, they're both the same genetics. And the good part about having two is you have two revenue streams. So it's a positive thing. And so there's also other ways that you can use the herd. Like for right now, I've researched animal bedding, and there's tons of farmers. I worked at an alpaca farm, and I know for a fact that the herd can be used for animal bedding, and it's extremely absorbent, and it's not wood chips, which are technically being used a lot within there. So that would be a more sustainable aspect. But no, you can't just grow for one. But you could sell your herd if you're not interested to someone else. You see, so it's reducing waste streams by utilizing two products as well.
Okay. Then I guess going back into what you were just saying about different uses for it. So we're seeing Hempcrete, we're seeing using it for bedding, then we're also seeing using it for fiber. What else can you do with hemp outside of this?
There's a lot of things you can do, and there's a lot of work being done right now in these innovations all over our country for sure, and all over the world. A lot of people are trying to use hemp as a bioplastic and a way to replace plastic, which in my mind is amazing. And we need to get up on that. The innovation needs to take a little bit more time, but also the herd is being used for insulation in cars. So BMW uses it in their panels and their doors. So there's a bunch of different things that you could do with hemp. There's paper, obviously. That's something that, is easy to do from what we're doing. Paper is we have paper plants in our country. We have them in Massachusetts. We have them all over the place. We have one very close in Massachusetts. That is something that should be done. And people are making hemp paper right now. The thing is that it's coming from outside of our country, and that because they have the innovations, they have the price points, And that's kind of how it works. So if you're looking to use hemp paper, it's going to be a lot more expensive. And so that's where you find the divide. And having the markets meet where hemp isn't so expensive and figuring out how to get it to a place where it's like totally reachable for certain companies to just say, of course, we're just going to use hemp. There's other ways to use hemp. Like there's this really cool thing where people are making hemp wood, where it looks like wood. It's not hempcrete, it's different. So it's almost like a biocomposite as well. There's something called biochar, which is burning the organic material to get a char that helps the soil. That's pretty cool. A lot of people, if you think about textiles as well, we just think about apparel, but textiles as a whole are used in a lot more places than apparel. Like for air filters, that's a textile. People are using hemp air filters in large scale AC units and heating and really working on that. And that's something that I've seen that was really innovative. We also have to look at the medical industry because hemp is antibacterial. And it's also super strong. The medical industry could definitely benefit from this. They're not using as much as they can. I mean, that's a huge market that hemp can go into. Then we look at the military. Our military uses a lot of cotton canvas. You know what's stronger than cotton? Hemp. You know what hemp's great for making in a textile? Canvas. There's a lot of applicability all over the world. And, you see those infographics, hemp can make 2,000 products. Yes, of course. I mean, we can hit almost all the different economic things. If we're looking at food, seeds, hemp seeds are an extremely amazing protein source for vegans. Okay. Yeah. So we're hitting a lot. And so the industrial hemp, we didn't even talk about the food aspects yet, but the industrial hemp, it has seeds. When you grow for CBD, you don't want seeds. That's bad. That means you want female plants with no seeds. In industrial hemp, it doesn't matter because the seeds are a third revenue source because you can sell them to a company that then dehulls them, takes off their shells, and they are one of the most perfect protein sources. And there's a bunch of companies selling hemp hearts. And that's a whole new aspect too. So you're hitting so many different industries with one plant. That's why they say 2,000 products. I mean, I could probably list off 150 myself, but yeah, we could keep going for days.
Then I guess to ask, so we have all the markets. How do we get to the point where hemp is affordable enough where it can be actually used as an alternative product? And what does the steps from here look like in order for one, in Vermont to get hemp industry up and booming, but then also nationally? Where do we go?
Well, as we know, we have other bigger states in our country. And a lot of those bigger states with a lot of farmland are more advanced because they're able to do it. And we would need the market buy-in, but we would need to assure these farmers that if they're risking their farm, that they're going to get a return. And right now it's happening, but it's just not there. And that's where I come in as a product developer. It's thinking, okay, if this is what we're going to use this for at the end, how do I line up the people who want that? How do the people know that they want that? I got to sell them on it maybe, or create the markets or say, okay, is this in your price range? Would you switch? Or, it's really the innovators out here that are pushing and saying let's do it. Let's try. And there are a lot of companies that are trying. Colorado has a huge industrial hemp program. So does Oregon. And we look at those two states, and those two states definitely legalize adult recreational THC before us. And so that plays into it a bunch. And I've seen the flow. So I don't know what it's going to take in our state, but every day I try and work towards figuring it out. My dream would be that we have a entire giant warehouse with people all over the state who are growing their certain amount of industrial hemp. And at this facility, we would have all the production that we needed to make all the different steps. That would be my dream. I would love to work there, and I believe it could be happening sooner than later. There are some people in our state, like Zion Growers. They are doing amazing, amazing things, and I highly recommend checking them out. They're going to be purchasing the decorticator. They are focused on industrial hemp, and I am right by them, trying and hoping and doing the best I can to help them do this in this state. I mean, we gotta figure it out. I personally don't want to ever own a factory. That's not my dream job, but I know people do. And, being able to do this and then bring this product to the market is exactly where I find myself in position with my background, my education, my outspokenness. I want to be a beacon for getting this done and working and figuring out who needs what. And that's the consulting work I do. I work a lot with bigger companies and trying to figure out who are the players that are serious and what can we do. And I think our future is bright, but we need to be patient. And that's what I need to say. We need to be patient because we need to figure this out. The other things that farmers need to understand is if you grow industrial hemp, how do you know it's going to be viable? And that's where we have the extension soil program at UVM that looks at these things. And so we're doing the research through UVM, and that makes me really excited.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kelly.
You got it.
Thank you. I hope everyone has enjoyed this interview. I know I definitely have.
Thanks, Ayden.
Yes, next week we have Jack Hansen, BTV City Councilor. We're going to talk about some of his activism, talk about Run on Climate. Really excited to have him on as well. But right now, Kelly, thank you so much. This was an amazing interview.
Great. I'm so happy I could help. And you could always reach me on Facebook, Kelly McDowell, or you could hit up my company. It's elucidationsci.com, ELUCIDATION.com. Thank you.